Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Chutt joining you for this edition of Nate at 8. And we're joined on this edition with our weather intern this summer, Rachel Grant. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are tracking, well, a lot of the same, aren't we, Rachel?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the same.
Rinse and repeat, we feel this week. But
Yeah.
there is some change to come next week. At least there's something to come there. But it's nice weather for this weekend, all right?
Yeah, it's a gorgeous stretch of weather coming up this weekend, and that is what we're going to be talking about for this edition of Nate at 8. Coming up, the weather for the weekend, nice, but it is turning hot. There's temperatures picking up a bit more in addition to the humidity, but our dry weather looks to continue. So Lola already asking, good evening, Lola, asking any rain headed our way, and at least here near term, Lola, as we extend through the weekend, likely going to be dry. So a lot of that same weather in that regard likely does continue. When we jump into things, starting off, those temperatures have been pretty similar. Like Rachel said, rinse and repeat. Those high temperatures back into the 80s today, now falling in the 70s and back in the 60s again going into tomorrow morning. Like we mentioned, though, we will start to see an uptick in those temperatures in addition to that humidity.
Yeah, so right now we're sitting at really pleasant weather for us here in Steubenville. If you're near Wheeling right now, it's doing around 63 for our dew point. It's like tolerable. It's not terrible, but it's not as nice as it could be. But heading into the next 5 days, we'll notice an uptick in that. We're seeing it becoming uncomfortable really past Sunday onwards. So Friday and Saturday is looking relatively nice. Maybe a few points here or there where it just might be uncomfortable when you walk out the door. So a really pleasant weekend ahead. But as soon as we go into next week, then it'll start to feel uncomfortable as soon as you walk out the door.
Yeah, and even on that verge of unbearably humid.
Yeah.
And that was that range we get close to 70 degrees and even into the 70s. That right around that range is where we were for a lot of July and the end of June. So yes, we can get back to a taste of what we had during that hot and humid stretch again by the time we get into next week. And as the humidity picks up, the temperatures will as well. Though the temperatures start to pick up a bit more than the humidity, at least here near term, we're likely well in the 80s tomorrow. And by Saturday, Sunday, topping off near 90 degrees, then into the 90s likely on Monday. When you factor in that humidity with these temperatures, again, still not too bad here near term. It can certainly be uncomfortable at times, but you'll notice it's not going to feel a whole lot warmer than the actual air temperature the next couple of days. And then it starts to become likely more of a factor Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It'll feel like it's in the 90s at that point. And just be in general, be prepared for a hot and humid stretch developing by this weekend. That continues likely for most, if not all, of next week. We just get into that hot and humid stretch. Here near term, the temperatures will pick up, the humidity will pick up, but the rain chances, this is the one variable that likely does not. And you'll notice a couple stray showers just meandering across a portion of the area, essentially stationary, but staying dry for us here in Eastern High, the Northern Panhandle. And outside of dealing with something stray near us, that's been the extent of our rain threat. And this will just likely continue as we do extend through the weekends. We have great odds that we are likely going to end up dry. And now we are at a week straight now into the month of August where we have no measurable precipitation. That runs a deficit of 0.7 of an inch. Now for the year, we're pretty much on par with where we are for this time of the year. Looking at around 23.22 inches, around 23 inches of total precipitation for the year. We're pretty much on par with that. But for the month, certainly running that deficit with a week straight of no measurable precipitation at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. And it has been some time since we started the first week of August off to a dry start. How long? Well, we have to go back to 1998. So it's been over even 2 decades. That's how long it's been. Not far from 3 decades ago that the last time we saw that we had no measurable precipitation from the 1st through the 7th of August. And this dry stretch, again, this is 7 days now, but we can see this carry upwards of 10, even possibly 11 days. There is some expected rainfall over the next 5 to 6 days, but it is that 5th to 6th day is when rain chances can start to pick up. So we're at 7 now. Again, we can get to 10 by the time we wrap up the weekend, maybe 11 Monday, and even Tuesday. There's no guarantee. We have better odds, I think, to see a shower thunderstorm in the area, but even then it looks more isolated. So still quite a bit of us can stay dry even through Tuesday of next week. By Wednesday and Thursday, yes, we're anticipating scattered showers and thunderstorms are looking more likely at that point later next week. But here near term, this is still likely a dry stretch of weather. So again, great odds for 10 straight days, even 11 straight days on Monday, and possibly 12 on Tuesday. The longest stretch we've had for this year was 11 days in a row back in January. So we could deal with the longest, tying the longest stretch of no measurable precipitation this year, possibly surpassing it, even if we can stay dry on Tuesday. But that being said, these temperatures, they're picking up. It's getting hot. It's getting a little humid. And Rachel and a lot of people, they're going to want to cool off. And there's no better way than jumping into this, right? I mean, this is
the perfect weekend to have a nice day by the poolside, enjoying the sunshine, just being outdoors, friends and family, maybe tan if you really want to. But this weekend's looking really nicely, especially Sunday, finally being in that 90-degree weather, and it won't be that uncomfortable outside as soon as you walk out the door. It'll just be picking up to start off next week. And with that being outside also comes using sunscreen. And this weekend is surely not a weekend to miss that. We're seeing tomorrow our UV index will be at around 7. So that's relatively high, but not as high as it will be for the following days to come. Saturday through Tuesday, we'll be seeing that UV index being at 8, which is very high. So it's important to apply sunscreen every hour or regularly enough to make sure you don't get burned, because you don't want to get burned on such a wonderful weekend, right, Nathan?
Yeah, and it doesn't take long. I mean, it can be a matter of a half hour, if not less, when you get to that very high range for the UV index. And I often make the joke that it's probably overused, but you don't want to end up looking like the UV index, looking red there. That's for sure. So make sure to keep that sunscreen handy. With the UV index being very high by this weekend, that will likely carry over into early next week, right around 8 for that UV index, into that very high range is the forecast by this weekend and into next week. But that being said, apply some sunscreen, maybe take some breaks in the shade, stay hydrated, right? Practice the heat safety tips. But this is just a generally quiet stretch of weather that we'll still have in place, just turning hot and yes, turning humid on us, especially by next week. And by the middle to latter part of next week, as rain chances likely pick up, especially around Wednesday, Thursday, look to be our best odds here near term for those scattered showers and thunderstorms. Later next week, then the rain chances look to drop some next Friday, Saturday, which is why these temperatures can start to rebound back to around 90. It's the cloud cover and rain that can start to trend us a bit cooler on Wednesday and Thursday. But keep in mind that those are still some hot and humid days, right? At that point, the humidity is ramping up Wednesday, Thursday, and it'll feel like it's in the 90s, even despite those highs that can stay even below 90 degrees. So just be prepared by this weekend for a hot and humid stretch of weather that's just going to continue for what will be at least likely a week. Even looks to continue into that following weekend. It's a pretty hot and humid stretch. Austin, good evening, Nate and Rachel. Today was another beautiful day. Got to see the bad guys too. Not looking forward this week of mugginess. Austin, not looking forward to that humidity. Unfortunately, is returning, but still not too bad here over the next couple of days at least, and then it starts to pick up. Yay, looks great. Debbie's liking this weather. Rachel, liking those temps picking back up.
Yeah, I'm liking this weather too, especially compared to July, where it was very humid almost all the time.
Yeah.
And now it's like a nice welcome to August and the dwindling down of summer.
Yeah, it was almost I think some call it the false fall. And now we're in the second summer. There's a little taste, right? A little preview of the upcoming season at the beginning of August. So we went from our false fall to our second summer. So we'll see how long our second summer lasts before we get to the true fall. But yeah, certainly going through the middle of this month, it is looking hot. And we could see even later on this month, it still deal with some pretty warm temperatures that extended outlook, which we can even pull up, which you were touching on this earlier, Rachel, that looking at that long range forecast that, this hot weather arriving in the middle of the month, that the long range forecast is even favoring that.
Yeah. So the next week or so, we're looking at above average temperatures for us, and we're seeing that rain creeping in the next week. That's where we start to see that rain come through. Like we just saw on the 10-day around Tuesday or Wednesday. And then that'll really dissipate 2 to 3 weeks out. We won't be really seeing any rain after that, but we'll still be remaining relatively warm, especially in the next 2 weeks. And then we'll maybe get a cool down going into September. But again, that's almost a month out. So take that with a grain of salt, if you may.
Yeah, definitely. Getting that far out. But yeah, like you mentioned, good pointing out that the precipitation likely not a really wet pattern, looking a bit more wet into that later stretch of next week. But certainly these long range forecasts not showing a really wet pattern, but maybe getting back to more of a normal in terms of precipitation. But you can see all the red, all the orange on the screen, definitely not favoring a lot of cool temperatures coming our way, at least here near term, going into the middle to even latter part of this month. Austin mentioning that ants, seeing a lot more ants. I'm wondering if the mugginess could be the cause. And Austin, I think that this warm and muggy weather, I think all these insects are loving it. I think that, I think all of those insects, I think, are loving this weather of being warm and muggy, especially the stretch of warm nights that we've had as of recent. I'm sure that, really from July, end of June, that long stretch of a lot of warm nights. I'm sure these insects are loving it up, and some of us maybe not so much, or maybe not too happy that the insects are loving this warm weather. Brown grass starting to show, Lola says. No mowing in the future. And yeah, I've been starting to see that more, Lola, as well. Starting to see more of that, the grass starting to turn brown. This is our long and dry stretch of the summer. We haven't had this long of a stretch so far for the summer. Now that it's a week straight, this is the longest stretch we've had since April. So, we've had some rain sprinkled in, at least over the past several months on a weekly basis. But for this week, this past 7 days, we have not had that. No measurable precipitation at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. And as we look ahead, the stretch can only continue. And as the temperatures pick up, I'm sure the grass is going to get even more brown across the area. Now that we start to add more heat to that equation of also being dry, I can start to turn that grass more brown, even more, becoming even more a little widespread during this stretch as those temperatures pick up going into next week. All right. I think that does it. Yeah, it's pretty quiet stretch of weather. It's looking nice. Rachel, like I said, good to be by the poolside. Probably not too many clouds this weekend either.
No, maybe just a few tomorrow, but Saturday and Sunday almost looking crystal clear. Yeah. And then we'll see them return on Monday. But the weekend is looking really nice to just go outside and enjoy it. It won't be too hot. It won't be too humid. It'll just be the right weather we need for a cool pool day.
Yeah, definitely great poolside weather. There's no doubt. You can jump in and cool off and get out and soak up some sun. That's for sure. But like we mentioned, don't forget the sunscreen, right?
No,
don't forget the sunscreen. That's for sure. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate it as always. You can catch us coming up News 9 at 10 on Fox 9, News 9 tonight at 11 for the latest. And as always, that next edition of Nate at 8. And stay tuned tomorrow for the 5 and 6. We've got that special show. We're going live in Wheeling. This time around, I'm going to be joining them live in Wheeling. So we'll have some fun augmented reality weather graphics. That's right. We're out of the studio doing weather. I'm going to be out in that warmth, and I'm going to remember the sunscreen. I'm out in that sunshine and warmth for tomorrow. So tune in for that. Should be pretty fun tomorrow for the 5 and 6. And afterwards, I'll see you on the next edition of Nate at 8 tomorrow evening. Until then, have a wonderful night. We'll see all you on the next edition of Nate at 8.